Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to V with Mike G, the show of light, the show of writing, academia, Garland, Texas, and Grey Goose. Yes, today's guest is the amazing Ian Reilly, the new Texas brand ambassador for Grey Goose Vodka. We talk about a lot of different things. We talk about a lot of deep things, perhaps even spiritual, astrological things, and we talk about Grey Goose and the fine minds behind it, including Francois Thibault, of which I'll bring that interview to you guys later this week. Cannot wait to share that amazing chat in what we could consider Grey Goose Vodka Week on the Show to V. Not paid for, but these are great personalities and you guys really should get to know them. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this great chat with Ian Reilly of Grey Goose Vodka.
In my mind, I was going to accept the mantle of being a Gemini. It's more being in touch with the duality of life, and that there is never any one. There's never any one solution. There's never any one answer. We never are able to have full certainty, and of course, in different situations, you really have to be someone different. I mean, I use the example of imagine your best closest friend, right, and the worst things that you guys have ever done. You're smiling right now, just thinking about that stuff.
Think about how many times I got injured doing that shit, man.
Right? Yeah, and those are great memories. Now imagine doing those things alongside the person that you revere the most and that you respect the most and that you want to think most highly of you, and it would just never happen. And the point is that you in both of those cases are showing a different side. It's not that you're two different people.
Right.
It's that you are able to shape who you are in order to connect with them. And in a way, it's almost like those facets are designed for us to connect.
Well, we have to be adaptive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because communication, body language, it's all very reflexive, and you have to make sure that you can cater to some people will be really open. Yeah. And you'll be like, all right, well, I'm going to be really open then. I'm going to mirror. And then some people that are just one-word answers. Right. And so you have to be, do you feel that's a valid, or rather a valuable talent to have as a brand ambassador, that you can be reflective of your audience?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I think, and I'm, I would never present myself as the final word on ambassadorship.
Just it's a word.
No. I have a word. Yeah, and I would never present myself as that because there is so much more to learn. There's always more to learn. Just today, I was kind of recapping with Julien, who we met when he came with Francois. I had a really wonderful conversation. Very. It's always very meaningful to me to when he gives guidance because he has such sort of a deft hand with that, and that's an entirely other conversation. But it's very, very helpful for me.
But doesn't he feel like he has this gravitas?
Yeah.
As a man, and he's not. He can't be that old.
Yeah. No,
he's what, early 30s?
Yeah.
But that's
not much older than me.
I
don't actually know how old you are.
I'm 37. You're 29, right?
Yeah.
So but you like being around those folks that,
of course,
they can bring something into a room.
Yeah.
It's like the Beatles song, man. Something in the way they move. I mean, it is.
You're such a romantic.
Well,
I didn't know you're romantic.
I'm fucking Aquarius.
It's okay. I am too. But no, it's true. It's true. And I think that what I can bring to kind of come back to your original question, what I can offer as my word, for ambassadorship is that my approach at least is that of having some effect of a mirror personality, of being able to read a room, to read the people in it, and adapt and respond to that well, and the goal of that being to connect. And I think that that's at the heart of what we were talking about earlier, you know,
Right.
kind of off screen. What are we off?
Yeah,
mic,
off
you know?
the record.
Right. Yeah.
That was the exciting shit, guys.
Right. Yeah. You know, but you know, I think that you can either, you know, we will all have facets that we show and a lot of things that we reserve to ourselves, and you know, some people will do that to protect themselves as a defense mechanism, and some people will do that to connect with other people as a way to say, okay, well, you know, I see that this side of me is not something that, you know, that you would find, whether it's palatable or whether you could even understand it right now, and so I'll shape myself so that you can receive it. If that makes sense. Yeah.
I think that's ultimately diplomacy.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
allowing
yeah,
other
definitely.
people and allowing people to expand about the way that they feel without questioning them and without judging them.
Yeah.
And again, you know, maybe I'm romantic. I don't know. It's hard to say. Sometimes I'm too much in my head. You have to talk to my closest friend to see for sure. But
Yeah, that would be an interesting interview, actually. And without you, about you.
without me, about me. We got well. There's one coming up next week.
It's like a
200
Belle and
episodes.
Sebastian
I
song
finally
or
get to. Oh, Jesus. It's the most emotional day in Scotland, right?
Right.
But talking about the duality, which I think is a really important thing, and this has just been on my mind today. I was having a conversation earlier. Duality is fine.
Yeah.
Right? They, in a way, probably are complementary sides to ourselves. The one that's isolated that wants to be in nature, maybe. Then the gregarious side that wants to be out in the public meeting people.
Sure.
All makes sense, right? And duality is completely fine. But in ourselves, there's always this duality. But the way that I feel people have been talking to each other lately, it is black and it is white. Without naming names at the greatest level of government, which isn't really the point.
Yeah.
The way that people are talking about things, whether it's politics, whether it's movies, whether it's Beyonce, it's all polarized. Why do you think it's come down to me versus you? Yeah, that's a big question, and I know that you're on the higher seat. So.
Right. Yeah. You know, I think you know, it's something that I've been dwelling on.
Yeah.
I think that all of us have. I actually, you know, I would venture that I see it kind of pop up and it just kind of like rear its head a little bit so often in daily conversation, and I think that we're still sort of nervous to discuss that. And I think that it does, in a way, tie into what we're talking about with facets. That, like, you know, it's either to defend, to protect, you know, the self, or to share.
Defense mechanism in its way too. When you talk about it, I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to be called out. I don't want to feel afraid. You know.
Yeah, you know, to be careful about what you say and when. And thank you for not mentioning any names.
Yeah,
that makes it much easier for me to talk.
Yeah, of course. Right.
You know, so yeah, but I think regardless of where you sit. Be it politically, socially, economically, all the, you know, millions of things that are tied into the zeitgeist right now, and the fact that, I mean, just imagine like a few years ago, you know, what the average conversation on social media was about compared to today, and it's really
a lot shorter, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
a lot more succinct in nature, I would say.
Right. Anyway, but so, you know, to that end, I think that you see trends like that. Thinking of society as an individual, and that's kind of where I want to like apply that. Thinking of society as an individual, you see trends like that when we are, as a nation, as a society, whatever, defending ourselves, and things like you know, not perfectly quote, you know, the wisest of all teachers, Yoda.
He's pretty wise.
But you know, I think it certainly rings true, and obviously, you know, it's sourced from a lot of truly, you know, great thinkers that actually existed and wrote these things. You know, but that all of the things that we're seeing, the anger and the hatred and the violence,
very definitive emotions, right? Black or white.
Yes, yeah. All of these things are coming from fear.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that, you know, because we're in that sort of survival mode, for lack of a better word, when you're trying to survive, like, you don't make room, you don't make allowances for like, oh, well, I'd like to understand you, and maybe, like, you know, maybe we can come together and whatever. Like, if you sense that you're fighting for survival, you know, all that goes out the window. And that doesn't mean that, you know, a lot of the people that are involved actually are fighting for survival. They perceive that.
That's right.
This is a
the
defense
brain
mechanism.
function.
You're right.
Which actually is a mechanism of, I think, the frontal lobe that is a flight or flight response.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think that we're seeing sort of a macro fight or flight response. Economic woes. Like the conflict that comes from what seems to be an approach to a global society. Where you have the whole notion that one man sharpens another,
right.
which may be true, but that doesn't mean that it's not destructive and painful in the process. And I think that I as optimistic as it sounds and strange that I would take it there, I think that like there is the opportunity for us to come out better for it. And I think that those are decisions that we have to make individually. It makes me think of Dallas after the real tragedy last year.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, there was a shooting. I believe 6 police officers that lost their lives, and several more public servants and civilians that were injured. And I think because you look at some of the other things that were happening, and Detroit and Ferguson and things like
Baltimore,
that.
Man,
Baltimore,
rough,
yeah. It could have very much turned into those kinds of situations, and it didn't. And I think that was very much. I'm very proud of my city, and the fact that we responded to that, and the sort of agitators that wanted to make it into something, wanted to champion.
Yeah, what's the word? Destabilize it in a way, right?
Yeah, and I think that as a whole, Dallas just kind of said, "No thanks,
we're not having that."
Yeah, and I'm really proud that there was nothing in the wake of that, and that people by and large sort of recognized it for what it was. Which was one lone, very disturbed person who was sadly very equipped to hurt a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think, I think that there's an optimistic view to be taken with the circumstances. That doesn't mean that necessarily that we should respond to it and embrace the kinds of things that we're seeing.
Do you feel like, so you use the word optimism, if you had a role in all this, and maybe implicitly our purpose in this life, we do have a role, maybe, right?
Maybe.
To maybe inspire, to maybe learn. I don't know, whatever the dynamic may be. But for you, do you feel like there's a pretty clear path for you here? This doesn't have to be career, right? But just kind of paradigm-wise and philosophically, are you the guy that comes in and says, yes, this may suck, but it will absolutely be better?
I try to be. I try to be always. And I think I certainly look to my betters, for guidance. I have a lot of heroes.
Yeah.
And I think that that you only have choices. Like who you are and how you define yourself and how the world perceives you, is really just a combination of the choices that you make.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a wasted choice to give up to take a unnecessarily negative attitude, and to go anywhere below frank acceptance of reality is a wasted opportunity to have been somebody better than you were.
Yeah.
And I think I also think of in something a little bit less lofty, I think of the 40% rule.
Yeah.
In this case too, which it sounds like you're familiar with.
Pareto I'm familiar with, so 80-20, but tell me what the 40% is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, 80-20, which is another wonderful numerical rule. Yeah. We'll do Fibonacci next.
Archimedes somewhere there. Yeah. Fat guy toilet.
Yeah, we're
tub anyway.
All math today, guys. All math.
Sorry.
Politics and math. It's going to be great. So the 40% rule is not nearly so lofty as that, actually. It's the idea that when you are undergoing physical stress, that when your body tells you, stop, I'm done, I hurt, I don't want to go any further, that is 40%. And
no kidding.
Yeah. And forget about the science behind that or anything like that.
No,
I'm not even trying to present it as this is a well-documented thing. Sure. It's sort of a tool to take advantage of the more nebulous idea of mind over matter.
Yeah.
To say, okay, cool. This is terrible. My body is telling me that I can't go any further. Cool. Start the clock.
Yeah.
No,
I absolutely understand that.
Yeah. And to just say, okay, so I feel like I can't do anymore. So I'm going to do twice as much as I did. And then I'm going to do another, 50%. I'm going to push until I just, And you know what? If you can't do it then then your body was actually like eventually your body will give out. But it's not usually. Maybe once or twice that's happened to me. That I just could not get back up.
Yeah, but your body, I mean, it's so resilient. It's meant to grow. It's meant to put up
so much. Because in another couple minutes, I got back up. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So, it's such a interesting thing, and I like that. So, if we were to summarize it, it may hurt and it may feel strange, maybe even counterintuitive, but sometimes when you work through that, you have the biggest realizations ever. I think that's a really important thing. Well, so here I'm left here, man. Talk to hundreds of people now, which has been a lovely pleasure, and you're an insightful fucking guy.
Well, maybe I'm just presenting that facet.
Well, maybe Bacardi made a great hire.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
So you graduated in 2006 from Garland, right? I know about Garland. I mean, I like an amazing city. Yeah. I mean,
what do you know about Garland?
Just the 4 times I drove through it.
Okay, yeah.
So no real insight, but
it's not very interesting.
As a kid, then growing up in Garland, what are you getting into? Are you studying? Are you playing music? Are you skateboarding? What kinds of things?
I think that like I've always been somebody who will develop an interest and will apply myself to it completely, 100%. And you'll hear me talk about it all the time whenever I'm into it. And then oftentimes, I would sort of expend it, or I would have learned from it what I wanted, and kind of put that aside, and there would be something else. So I had a lot of hobbies, a lot of things that I would explore, and some that I continue, and some that I kind of put
What's
aside.
one that's remained in your life?
One that's remained in my life
from childhood.
Yeah, I would say. I mean the obvious one to go to, like, because in a way, like it's not. I hate this word, but it's true. That's part of like my brand,
Sure.
But like I hate that word. But
you're 8 years old,
right? Yeah. But like outdoorsmanship and going into wild places and surviving, testing yourself.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's an actual outdoors, nature versus you kind of situation.
Yeah. And I, had done that since I was very young. I think I probably went camping for the first time when I was like 6, and got to do a lot of really like exciting and kind of bizarre things. As I grew up in that, my father was really wonderful. I was very lucky, in the parents that I had, and my father was very much present and very much engaged, and has a wonderful gift for teaching and raising.
What was he doing
people.
what industry was he in?
So he actually still does work. He's an accountant. Which
that's not typically a characteristic of an accountant.
No, it's really not. He's the like least accountant-y accountant that you'll ever meet. He's incredibly personable and gregarious, and dominates whatever room he walks into.
That's amazing. And your mother, what industry was she in?
Actually, she doesn't work, and she didn't since we were born. I couldn't tell you how far back it was when we were married that she stopped working.
Wow.
But they actually met. They met working. They're both working for 7-Eleven actually.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Strange.
Back, I guess that was in the 70s was when they were kind of like really like making moves, I guess, and really growing. It was very explosive.
The heyday, right?
Yeah, right. the golden days.
The golden days.
The golden days.
The golden days. There's always some golden days. But so
they were in the opposite.
Much exposure then to the outside, the outdoors, like being challenged. When you talk about physical challenges, not Double Dare style, right? But lifting, perhaps running, really, really pushing your body forward. Anything that you were interested in that area?
Well, yeah. I mean, I would say, and it seems like you're asking, like, on top of, outdoorsmanship. Did I take an interest in specifically like fitness, exercise?
Yeah.
Actually, no, not at all. No. Not until recently. I mean, my fiance really kind of drew me into that world, kicking and screaming. Well, actually, no. I told her I wanted it. I just told her I would hate it for a while. She would have to tolerate that.
You're experiencing the 40% rule.
Yes, you're experiencing the 40% rule of me. That's our day-to-day life.
It comes around, though.
Right.
Well, so then your dad, obviously being an accountant, perhaps he's a CPA, perhaps not, but
yes,
definitely had to go to school.
Yep.
and definitely that straight and narrow path. You graduate in 2006.
Right.
Because I remember this because basically it's always about me when I look at the dates. I'm like, God, I'm really fucking old. But so you're out, you're in Garland, 2006. Do you have your eyes set on a larger, bigger place, or is it simply academia?
No, I totally did, and it was it did not work out that way at all, and I totally did, and it's it almost seems ridiculous now. Although I guess the conversation we're having, it'll make a lot of sense to you. Yeah. This is not like my daily casual conversation that I have with people, obviously. But at that time, I was this idealistic 18-year-old kid who's very, very steeped, ingrained in literature and kind of the whole range. And I was like 250 pages into an unfinished novel and was like, looking for
amazing.
I was looking for like professors to help me grow my craft and peers to challenge each other and all this kind of stuff. And I had this really sort of idealistic idea of what the college experience would be like for me. But at the same time, I was, what's the right word for that?
I'm hinging.
What is the combination of naive and there's a very specific word for this. Hubris.
Hubris.
Yeah,
oh.
like the combination of those. Yeah.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
So basically, somewhat arrogant,
which for the record is still there. Yeah.
How else can you be good at stuff without a little
right.
little shot of arrogance now and again? So I want to talk the writing piece, right?
Yes.
That's amazing. You felt you were capable of writing a novel, which
I
anybody
did
is.
Feel that, yeah.
No, it doesn't matter if you haven't lived much or not. Like you can still think about it.
No, sure.
You know what I mean? So you can always create things. What kind in the vein of who would you say? Who is inspiring you stylistically?
Okay. I was really interested in Dave Eggers and I'm reaching for his name and nouns have just slipped out of my head. I think I got like 3 hours of sleep last night.
You look good.
Thank you. He's a Japanese writer and very wonderful.
Murakami?
Yes, thank you, Haruki Murakami. Yes, I was about to say. I kept trying to say Miyamoto Musashi, who's like a famous like samurai and totally not applicable to this conversation.
He influences my writing.
Although his writing actually is incredible.
Is it really?
Yeah, the Book of Five Rings is better than The Art of War for sure.
Holy shit! No,
no
idea. I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I also like Miyamoto Musashi. That's fine. But yeah, Haruki Murakami was definitely something that I connected with.
Very ornate writing.
Yeah. It's sort of like in the same way that Gabriel Garcia Marquez is mysticism and
deeply passionate man.
Yes. Yeah. Who interestingly, I don't know if you know this about Murakami, but he actually has a real history in liquid culture.
Does he really?
Yeah. So before he was he started writing about 30 years old. So like, I've still got time if I want to start it up.
Sure. You got a year. Get
right. On it. Yeah. But he when he was 26, he opened a bar with his new wife. It was, the early 70s, and that was a real, that was sort of like the 50s were for America, the 70s in Japan. And he and his wife, I think in a suburb of Tokyo, opened a cocktail bar called Peter Cat. Yeah, and
this is
and
crazy.
I honestly like, man, now everyone's gonna hear this and they're gonna do it. I've always wanted to like recreate that,
oh my god, that's amazing.
Because what an amazing you just described that bar, ignoring the fact that it's tied into Murakami as well. And just like it's called Peter Cat, and like they play like vinyl jazz and incredible selection. And actually, someone has put on Spotify. I don't think it's him. But someone has put on Spotify his like massive like jazz selection.
Playlist for the bar?
I don't know about the bar, but
let's just say just the legend.
Right, all you got to do is just play that list.
Holy shit.
And it's essentially Peter Cat now.
I mean, this is kind of like a lost gem. I didn't even realize this. A man who can write so ornately and so
deep
beautifully to create an experience.
Yes.
A tangible experience. Think about that. Well, let's let everybody just sit at the edge of this.
Well, yeah, I just gave it away, so now I got to rush to do it first.
See?
I've been you drew it out of me.
No better time than the present for it.
I've kept that for so long.
Damn it.
All right, you're good at what you do.
This terrible thing I do to people. Did you abandon the dream per se of writing?
I did. Yeah.
I
haven't written in a long time.
Flat out.
Yeah, and not to say that like it doesn't inform who I am and the way that I interact with the world. And I'm certainly good at writing copy and that kind of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
And I think also in the way that I conversate, I have been accused of being loquacious, which makes sense when you consider that I'm listing off like.
Well, you did use the word lofty earlier.
Yeah, right. Going for all the L's today. So yeah, I think that it does like kind of inform who I am.
Yeah.
It's a part of me, but it's not a facet that I necessarily pursue in an active kind of way. It's just like much like Peter Cat from Murakami. Like it's back there, and if you read his novels with that knowledge, you see he has this incredible love of cocktail bars, of jazz, of and certainly of people. I imagine that's really where he began to explore, his understanding of people, and it really makes them tick. And so I think that's there for me as well. But I don't think I've written in a literary, sense in a long time.
You seem insanely cultured. Again, I go back to the accountant thing. So it's counterintuitive for me.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm just stereotyping, and shame on me for doing that.
Yeah.
But at this point, you're 29 years old. Have you, beyond, you've worked at some great parts, which we'll talk about here just in a second, but
True. Yeah.
Have you seen the world the way that you want to, or at least a portion of it yet?
Have I seen the world in the way that I want to is sort of like two questions in one, isn't it?
Fair.
Have I seen the world? I can never say that.
Yeah.
Because like, even while I actually, as a matter of fact, I should say this too. I've actually never left the country. So when I go to visit Le Logis, which is where Grey Goose is produced in Picardy, that will be the first time. Yeah, that'll be the first time that I leave, because we will not go on our honeymoon until after that. So probably.
Wow.
So. Which I think a lot of people are shocked by things like that when I sort of throw them out there.
I'm slightly shocked.
It's not something I bring up, often. But there are things that all of us haven't experienced,
Well,
and
absolutely.
I think, it
doesn't make you lesser. It's
Sure,
just
yeah.
you feel so
I don't think so.
entrenched and so ensconced in culture.
Yeah.
But not just American culture.
Right,
So you
right.
see how I can get that sentiment. I mean, kind of exude this European suave.
I consider myself a citizen of the world.
And that's how you met your fiance, saying something like that.
No, so I've never left the country as of yet, and there's plenty of things that I haven't done, and plenty of things that I may never get to do, right? And I embrace that. I think I don't think that to do them is to live. I don't think to not do them is to not live. I think that there's lots of pretty Instagram quotes that would suggest otherwise, and I think that's to sell yourself short, to miss like the greater picture, which is that you can never experience all of that, and we will miss so much. But at the same time, that we will get to experience something that no one else will get. And I think to embrace that, to embrace your own path and wherever that may take you, is perhaps more valuable than to go chase what you think that it should be. Because I think that's what you usually, and many people that I read would tell you that same thing. For some
live
reason,
your life.
Yeah,
go have the journey.
Right. But then once it's done, it didn't matter. It
always matters in some respect. Though.
You know what I mean. I'm thinking of Rudyard Kipling for some reason. I don't really know.
But like if you don't kill a bunch of people and write a story about it, the numbers weren't there. You didn't put the numbers on the board. But, no,
it wasn't necessarily what I was going for, but yeah.
But no, it's you're right. It's an interesting dichotomy there. Given that you can go introspectively and commit these thoughts, probably beautiful thoughts, to the page. Are you able to connect with people as well? Because these latest chapters, you're at People's Last Stand, you're at Jewel, you're at obviously then stepped into brand ambassadorship. Yeah. The hospitality piece, do you like interfacing with people? Yeah. Learning about them?
Wow, that's such an enormous question, I think, for anyone in hospitality. Yeah. And I think it's something that there's been more discourse about in recent years, which I appreciate, and I think I certainly one of the things that I am becoming more passionate about as time goes on is like wellness, whether you can call it programs or whatever you want. And that can be everything, physical, mental, all this kind of medical, financial, for the hospitality community. Because I think that we are so ingrained in this idea of being people that can just adapt, make things happen, get it done, and you work hard and you hustle and you get a little piece of the pie when you're done. And I think that there's not a lot of opportunity to sort of think of the self and take care of yourself. I think that it's almost celebrated to not.
You're right. And going back to the concept of being superficial.
Yes.
That's a way that even further dilutes your ability to have emotional and mental health.
Right.
Because you're not even opening the window all the way.
Right. Exactly. So. And the reason that I bring that up, I want to answer that. That wasn't just a clever evasion of your question. But the reason that I bring that up is because I think that I would answer both at the same time. And I think that a lot of hospitality professionals would relate to that, because what I have found most in the people that are best at it is that they give too much, which is strange.
At the cost of their bodies and their minds, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. They give too much, and it helps because they're so passionate about achieving it, that they throw their own wellness in many ways, financial or medical or whatever, by the wayside in order to achieve this greater goal that to them holds more meaning in creating experiences and so forth. But so anyway, I bring that up to say that as the years have gone on of being in the hospitality industry, and as I've thought about this more, and as I've begun to process my own place in it, I've tried to balance that as much as I can, and to create spaces where I can give all, and to create spaces where I give none. If that makes sense. And of course, giving none away
just means more so you can
to remove yourself.
Right, exactly.
To remove yourself,
because you have to spend that alone time.
Yes,
you have to have the quiet time.
And it doesn't even have to be alone. I really value my
love
time.
kind of is recharges us too, right?
Right, and pursuing whatever it is that you want to do with whoever it is that you want to do, and because it becomes ingrained in hospitality profession, very much in myself as well. To always be on, and so you'll find we joke about calling behind in a grocery store and people giving you strange looks and stuff like that. But it's indicative of a larger perspective in which you are constantly thinking about the way that the rest of the world perceives you and about the way that you're affecting them, and try to shape yourself to give the best to them. And that can be incredibly draining, and eventually people tend to break. And I think, there are examples of that are coming to my mind
today's a very interesting day. The Austin bar scene and the industry on the whole.
Sure.
Some very close friends were involved in a sexual assault.
Okay.
Which happens more and more.
Yeah. I do actually. I'm aware. I don't know anyone involved. I'm aware.
Yeah, they're actual friends. And I go back, and as you're talking about people giving themselves up for the sake of their mental health, for the sake of their physical well-being, right?
Yeah.
I see all the people involved are amazing people, but the particular one that was maybe the provocateur, the instigator, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Perpetrator, I think is the right word legally, but it's a pressure, man. Being everything to everybody. And had there been a moment for you, still quite young, still onto these, and being a brand ambassador, I think you get to control that narrative a little bit better. You can give exactly how much you want. Right. You don't own Grey Goose, which is good and bad, maybe depending.
Well, I sure would have liked to be Sidney Frank. Closing out the tab at $4 billion is not bad. Yeah.
Could be worse. But did you ever reach a crossroads in which you said, I'm going to have to reel it back. I think I really need to be more private.
Yeah. I think that's always happening. I think it's always happening. And I think that I can't speak to this subject without, saying certain things.
Sure.
Just, the fact that I am aware of it, the fact that I don't know either one of the people involved personally, the fact that I would like to, to know both of them. And of course, I'm coming into Austin. It's worth saying.
Yeah.
I'm coming into Austin. I lived here, 6 years ago, But I mean, the city's turned over. I barely
You
know
lived
anybody
there?
here. Yeah, I did. Before I went to Dallas, I was in Austin for years.
So Garland did Austin?
Well, no, Garland to Baton Rouge. Actually, that was.
So I've got this.
We never really touched that. We never really touched
look.
that.
Yeah.
We never really touched that. I went there and I was in Louisiana for a bit and kind of like bopped around there and went back to Texas and moved to Austin. That was, Austin was a way to kind of that was where I kind of like settled down and that was a choice for me. That was where I wanted to go and
Just
be young
you,
and explore.
or with love as well?
No, yeah,
Just
me.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was not. I was not chasing love. I think I was. It was very much running away. Even though I could make it sound prettier and say that I was chasing myself and discovering myself. I was running away. And I'm not saying that I would go back. I just hindsight is 20/20, and you understand better.
Do you like coming back then? Can you kind of? I imagine being in touch with Dwayne, who's deeply entrenched in this industry. Are you feeling any of these pangs as you come back into Austin? You kind of sense something's in the wind, something amiss. Just given this stuff is like really rocked. It rocked. I think that's an apt word for what's really going on today.
I think here's what I think. I think that in my early life, I would say that there's an element of running away from a lot of the moves that I made, and I think that I kind of made a stand, made a change, found myself, everyone wants to call it, in Dallas, and so it is kind of interesting to return to Austin, especially in this capacity, and one that I would feel comfortable saying some degree of success at 28, 29, and certainly not having gone to college or all that kind of stuff. Or certainly finished it, I guess.
Yeah, started.
Yeah, That was why I was in Baton Rouge. Actually, went to. So I was telling you, that I was writing this novel, and so the unfinished aspect of that was that with all that, I was also that sort of hubris, and I was like, well, I don't really care where I go. I can do this on my own. I don't need any help, whatever. So I took the first place to give me a full ride, just because to satisfy my family, I think, which is not a knock on them. That was my own choice, but I made it for someone else, and I got there and of course discovered something very different than what I described earlier.
Yeah.
And so I kind of fled that and tried to find some place to settle down, and finally did in Austin, and I think I did the same thing from Austin. I just on all fronts, it wasn't working out the way that I would want, and I wasn't making progress, and also I looked at the people around me, which is not, I would hope if any of them listen to that I would not be saying that I'm describing them in this way, but that I looked at them and I didn't see growth for them and their future either, and I certainly didn't see any in mine. I was very stagnant. I don't want to say city, but certainly like where I was in hospitality and so forth.
Do you remember any of the places you might have worked then here in Austin?
I remember Garridos for sure.
Because
I spent some time there. Which was when I have no idea what David Garrido's doing, now. But he was the exec at Jeffries for like 15 years or something, and went off on his own and did a kind of like fun, creative idea, mixing his culinary interests with I think what was very hot back then.
Yeah. What's great, but it's just crazy because to know that you and I could have been in the same room at the same time.
Yeah, it's totally possible.
It's an amazing thought. It really is. And so this is the thing. It's like, yes, I don't want to discount or downplay what was obviously a successful career in the cocktail piece, right? And being behind the bar. And you start working with whiskey. And so this makes sense too. But the thing is, like, for me, if I have one ability, even if it's weak, it's that I feel like I understand when people meet the right opportunity. That they've been matched with the right org. Yeah. Right? You can call it that.
Yeah.
And
see, now we're delving into your past. What were you doing? What were you doing professionally before this? Yeah.
Still am doing that thing.
Okay.
Lots of shit going on. But
we'll talk about the org charts later.
But second week of July, how long? You're officially, I think it was like July 17th, July 10th, something like that. You officially started with Grey Goose.
Yeah, July 10th. Yeah.
July 10th. Mm-hmm. And how long have you been talking to those guys?
It's funny because I had kind of gotten wind of it a few months out, from someone that I would definitely consider a patron or whatever you want to call it. So someone who's invested in my success, who's been successful in Bacardi, and kind of got wind of it, and it was just kind of in the back of my mind, knowing that it was out there. I think I wanted to play towards that. I don't think that I was trying to be too aggressive per se,
Right.
and just looking for the right moment. I did get to actually meet Francois and Julianne when they came through town.
Yeah. Amazing guys.
Yeah, I imagine the exact same time that they were here.
That's right. Yeah.
I would have met them in Dallas, and that was a really wonderful experience, and certainly began to really change my perspective on the brand, because I knew it was an opportunity professionally, but I wasn't invested in it until then, and it was after that that I started reaching out a little bit more. Aggressively, I guess.
This is a team I might like to play for.
Right. No, for sure. Yeah.
I'm a free agent, guys.
I mean, it's great that you've been incredibly successful, and like that you've been able to top the charts and
Right.
And do this kind of stuff. Like in a professional sense, they've been very financially successful. I know this, and that's great for me as a career, right? But it wasn't until meeting Francois and Julianne and experiencing their sort of presentation of what it was they set out to do, and what Grey Goose was all about, and learning a bit about the history and the production, and I was really taken aback, because I would say that that a lot of people in Dallas would think of me as like kind of the guy to go to for whiskey. Not the only guy, but
Right.
that I was very informed
a
and very
guy.
Yeah, very studious in that regard, and that I knew a thing or two. And so that was kind of what I was associated with. I think, like I was mentioning before, part of my quote unquote brand, right?
Sure.
And which is fine. That the way that the world at large perceives you. So it was very unusual to even consider vodka being a part of that until I began to learn about what Grey Goose was. Like the fact that, for one thing, that it's 20 years old and had achieved that success already. I'm like blown away by that. That's astronomical.
And then you have a previous Master Duché, right?
Right.
That's
Right.
Coming
Exactly.
in and knows
Cellar Master, for those that don't speak French. Yeah. And for those of us that don't pronounce it properly as well.
It's Duché, right?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, like this guy, he's one to rally around.
Of course. Yeah. I think that, and to understand like what it is to be a cellar master, I always kind of like compare it to, because not a lot of people have touched made to Shea in like the zeitgeist, but they have touched sommelier, Somm, the movie, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, have you seen the movie Somm, right? And it's about it's about people who are studying for their master somm, trying to achieve that, and you meet some master somm in the process. And I'm like, for one thing, like imagine like trying to have a casual conversation with them. They spend their entire lives like entrenched in this, and it's incredible. But they live and breathe it, and that's sort of what it is to be a cellar master in the world of cognac. These guys are like really forces to be reckoned with, and their palates are unquestionable. And so already like you're going from a great start, right? But it still seems strange to people in the context of vodka.
Well, especially in France, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, because there at that time,
jarring for them culturally. It's like, what?
Yeah, there wasn't French vodka.
Wasn't
a
thing.
thing. Yeah. There are some others now.
Yeah, now.
I not even because I work for Grey. I just can't name any.
Right, but no, Francois ultimately created the market.
Right.
He and Sidney Frank, right?
And honestly, more than just Grey Goose. And of course, I'm sure that people working for other brands might disagree. And all that I would present is that there were many premium brands that came before Grey Goose, and there were many that came after, and they all have their own purposes, their own goals, their own mission statements. But I would say that Grey Goose was the first to set out intentionally to create something that was sort of the opposite of the language that had been around vodka up until that point. Because it's the very like the actual legal language even about vodka is negative.
Odorless.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so Tax and Trade Bureau defines it as using those words about it, and
it's almost inherently neutered by definition, right?
Yeah, this is what we think of when we think of
exactly.
vodka. Yeah, this is what the craft community certainly thinks of when they think of vodka. And so that was how I was ingrained as well. In fact, I'll happily say it too. One of my the sales consultant at the distributor that I worked with when I was a buyer at the Jewel was ribbing me for it. She's like, I couldn't get you to bring in a bottle of Grey Goose for one of the concepts. And which is totally fair. But I kind of presented as like I was the skeptic, right?
Yeah.
The convinced skeptic, because
You're just inquisitive, though.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like you just want all the information,
right? Yeah. And I perceived Grey Goose in the way that it had been presented to the world for so long, and that's how they achieved the success they did. That's very much, I think, on the shoulders of Sidney Frank too, who I would never sort of profane his work, because like it's like I use Jägermeister as an example. Right, like if you ignore the fact that it's a household name, we all know it, we've all shot it, and most of us
Slayer drinks it.
Yeah,
come on.
But like ignoring all of that and just think about, like, take the branding away and just think about what it is. Yeah. And it's this like weird black, bitter and sweet German liqueur. Like it's like German Amari, but that doesn't even doesn't exist.
It's like the neo-surrealism. Ultimately German film that no one watches.
Right. Yeah, like, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I watch it, but fast Binder.
Yeah, right. For some reason I'm thinking of like the Mighty Boosh when you say that.
Right.
I'm like, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, But it's the same kind of thing. Like, wait, so now we know, my dad knows that now?
Yes. Yeah. Everyone knows what Jägermeister is, and he was a master of marketing. And we don't need to delve into his whole career, but fascinating guy. I like started in burlap, sleeping in burlap sacks,
just like Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I'm
probably a little bit more charming, but
well, I don't know. I'd like to spend some time.
He has a certain charm, I guess.
He does. It's a little more blue collar.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so I want to ask you this about Francois.
Yes.
I mean, had the privilege of dining with Dwayne, Julien, and Francois the evening before, which was great. So we had we didn't prep for the interview. We just get to talk about French New Wave film. That's really like what I kept asking him about, right?
Just like getting a Nouvelle Vague and like
like Godard, Truffaut, and all this. But he was an impressive man.
Of course.
When you met him, because I want both of these interviews to come out kind of like in sequence, and I think it's perfect.
Sure.
Complimentary. What was your impression of him as a man, not a creator, not as a distiller, not as a cognac person, but just as a man? Like,
man, you've got the questions. What did you think of your boss when you met him?
No, because it's not. He is charming as shit.
Yeah. Okay, that's like it's an important one, because when I met Julien, we didn't really have like a interpersonal a transaction, really. I think to a certain degree, it was just because of the format of it. Because I understand, like, you're in another country and you're hitting a different city every day, and like you don't really speak the language particularly well, and you have a translator and you're being inundated by these people. So like, to me, I almost looked at it like, I looked at it in the same way as if you were to run into like a movie star on the street. That's like, proper, like, not procedure, but what would you say? Manners, I guess.
Yeah, but
like
what is
proper etiquette? Like when you run into a movie star on the street, it's like, don't fucking run up to him and like, start talking about whatever movie that they did,
right?
And quoting lines back at them. It's like if you were to run into, like, gosh, the Big Lebowski, what's his name?
Jeff Bridges.
Jeff Bridges, yes, thank you.
I would talk about
I was about to say Jeff Daniels for some reason.
I would talk to Jeff Daniels in a fucking heartbeat.
Sure, I would too, but different,
But yeah, you're right.
Very different conversation.
The dude, I bet he gets it.
Right. Yeah, imagine how tired of that he is. Yeah. And so I kind of looked at it in the same way, that like I very much wanted to like make my presence known and kind of greet them and welcome them to Dallas and thank them for the experience. Yeah. But I also didn't really want to, like, they've got to meet so many thirsty, like, young up and comers that want something from them. Give me something. You have all this resources, and so I didn't really do that. So anyway, but the question was, what was my impression of Julien?
Yeah.
I'm also
Francois.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Francois. Okay.
Yeah.
What's even? Oh my God.
That's the
even,
movie.
Yeah.
I mean, Julien is.
That's a big one to hit.
He's obviously a very charming gentleman.
Yes,
but like Francois feels like a movie star.
We've talked about Julien anyway. Yeah. I think Francois, my impression of him was, as you say, actually, of a movie star when we're talking about, Truffaut and things like that. like he could be what was his name? He was in like Le Samurai and all that kind of stuff. And
Alain Delon.
Alain Delon. Yeah. Like, you know, he could be you know, he could have been a young Alain Delon, you know, very, very cultured, very, very, you know, suave, and you know,
demure is not a word usually used for men, but
that is an unusual context, but I think that's what you're saying.
It really, really
humble
makes sense.
Humble, yeah. But a humility that comes from experience and influence. And I think like that's something that I've been thinking about a lot, actually, that like not to compare the degree of my influence, you know, to that of Francois. But you know, it's something I've been thinking about a lot in this context, because I mean, this has been madness like this past month, and I don't think that I need to like, you know, sugarcoat that. I don't think that it's like, you know, I have an amazing, I had the coolest job on the planet. I had the coolest job on the planet, but it's been incredibly difficult. It's stretched me absolutely to my fullest potential, I feel, and it's been very rewarding to do that.
The 40.
Right. Yes. Yeah. We are at 100.
That's right.
We are at 100.
No, it's probably 96. You still got some leeway.
Yeah, maybe so. This past week felt like 100. But the reason I say is that a thought that's been on my mind a lot is that I feel that I feel that my ego is shrinking, and that I'm becoming more. What's the right way to say it? Okay, I feel that my self-esteem is growing, and that my ego is shrinking. How about that?
That's great.
Like, so I feel like
confidence, but you don't feel the
I'm humbled daily.
To display it.
I'm humbled daily. Yes.
Yeah.
But I also know that at the end of the day that I can deliver what is being asked of me, or wouldn't be asked of me, of course.
Yeah.
And so I put aside, like we're saying, you know, the desire to quit, the desire to run, you know, whatever. Just put that aside, and this is what's in front of us, and we're going to deal with this. We're going to adapt and on to the next thing. And that can be literally like minute to minute, or it can be day to day, or week to week. Or I hope it gets week to week one day.
It will, and then it'll be month to month. But I didn't realize, and I never even thought that concept of duality and that concept of black and white would then come full circle here.
Yeah.
So you're in town. I know they had some of the other Grey Goose ambassadors in town. I missed. Selena was one.
Everyone was here. Yeah.
It was incredible, and I just didn't have the opportunity to chat. I would love to chat with everybody.
Yeah, I'm so disappointed now. We had a blast, but I almost feel like because I wouldn't have been able to like really apply my full attention, you know, to getting to know you as well, which is such a pleasure.
No, it's
now, you know. So.
Yeah, I mean, this is these kinds of experiences, and finally being connected to the brand itself. I mean, I'm going to say one of the most moving moments I've had in chatting with anybody is sitting down, being tired, having drank a bit, and that's not really my style, right?
Yeah.
Like I really want to be prepared.
Yes.
For the interviews and stuff, but
which you obviously are. I mean, you've done your research, which is hilarious. Like the idea of someone researching me is still hilarious.
Is that strange for anybody? Like,
I'm like, why?
What is wrong with this fucking guy?
But like, no, please, yeah.
Yeah, but 6:30 in the morning at the West End downtown to have that moment with Julian and Francois, and they were so present. We were all so connected, and it was a moment in which I felt pulled to the terroir, pulled to the place, pulled to the man, pulled to the product in a way I never had been before.
It's magnetic,
you know, and that's the thing that all of a sudden I just started saying, well, I want to connect more with Grey Goose. You guys are doing something different. You're doing something artistic, you know, something that for me anyway, was able to connect with it a little bit more.
Yeah, no, that's God, that's probably the best plug that we could ask for. I guess I don't need to say anything else. Yeah. No, wow, that is incredibly kind of you, and I'm thrilled that like you've had the experience that I've had.
Yeah.
You know, because like I said, I came as a skeptic. I had a perception of it that was completely shattered. Yeah. As I actually got to know it.
You go in and you're like, I know this, I know that. And then you come in and you're like, well, I've softened up to this thing. I've softened up a whole lot.
Yeah. You
know?
I know nothing. Yeah.
Because then we're open again. And we're not just so fully committed in our corner to some perspective.
I love that you said that. Yeah, because I think that like, you know, and we were also talking, you know, off mic about just the fact that I would consider myself agnostic and kind of what that means to me. But I think it applies to everything. Of course, it's a conversation about whether or not there's a higher power and what that looks like and so forth, which is a wonderful subject to dive into that we probably should not begin or we will never stop.
We're gonna need another bottle of rum for that,
right? Yeah. It is certainly a philosophy of having an open mind and accepting that while it is human to believe, we must believe something that we don't have proof of what that might be, and because of that. It teaches a degree of tolerance, and I think that like you're saying, to have that open mind is to have just that little bit of tolerance, for your fellow man, and
compassion,
and in a grander sense, as we were discussing politics, that is something missing now, because when people are so sure of their beliefs, then they have no room for people to disagree.
I know.
But also, in this capacity of brands and so forth. Forgetting about branding can sometimes allow you to understand the brand better, and that's not even necessarily a knock on the branding that's been done, because branding is unless you're an incredible talent, and I really do think that what we're doing now may bring us ahead of that game. But generally speaking, branding is it's reflexive. It's reactive. It's reactive. Yeah. We see that this is in the market, and so we're going to adapt to it. I think that to have that open mind and to take the branding away and just see it for what it is without all the labels and so forth, can take you out of that and even ahead of it, to where you allow people to make a decision for themselves and trust that they will make the right decision.
And it's about people instead of things.
Individuals. Yeah. Yes. Because every single sip of Grey Goose that enables me to be employed and us to do these wonderful things and jet set around the world and hang out in nice cool food and beverage spots, that's all because somebody somewhere had a martini or a vodka soda or a vodka gimlet or whatever, or some amazing craft cocktail, all of this is because there are people out there that are having those experiences. And so it's good to, I think, remember that.
Sure.
And of course, we have to work on a macro scale. We are a global company.
Massive.
Yeah. But I think there's still room to
stop. Smell the flowers.
Right. To have a real, interpersonal connection, to win one person over.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what it will be for the next 10 years. Yeah.
Well, I've got, because I know, being in Austin, you were just in San Antonio today. You're doing this massive tour. I've got 2 questions left for you. I know that
you're
going to do some great stuff after you probably depart here this evening. Well, one I want to we'll take it off, and we'll come back to Vive, which is kind of, I think, one of the reasons you guys are all in town collected.
That's right.
But I'm really curious to know, and I asked this of all the guests, but it really kind of it demonstrates some things about their personalities, reveals perhaps some things. So let's say you are drinking whatever you want. At your favorite bar in the world, wherever that may be.
Yes, let's do say that.
Right. And so you're just there at the bar,
okay,
having a great drink, and you could have a conversation with anybody, living or deceased. Who would you love? And this can change. This thing. Say, well, there's only one. No, it can change based on our personalities, based on the seasons and all that.
Sure.
Who might you like to have a conversation with at the bar?
I think. Which I hate that this will be such a common answer. I would imagine it's a common answer, but certainly meaningful to me. One would certainly be Abraham Lincoln, and someone. I'm a huge Lincoln file.
Yeah.
It was actually in Austin. It was probably 10 years ago that I read Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin, which is a hefty 800-page tome, and you look at it and you're like, I don't want to pick that up, but it just flies, and it reads it reads as if she was his close personal friend, and she was there for all these conversations. It's really, really amazing. And if you ever want to certainly understand the man, but also to understand, whether it's diplomacy or leadership
or just being a husband,
right? Yeah, and he would definitely be one. And actually, there's a particular quote that I will never forget from that. And it's a young Lincoln, long before his successes. He's a lawyer, he's in Chicago, actually. He's been there probably a few years. And it's in a letter that he writes to his buddy. His last name is Speed. I can't remember his first name. But he writes this letter to Speed, and they've both had real tragedy recently in their romantic lives. So Speed's I want to make sure that I'm getting this right, because I believe it's Speed's fiance who has died, and Abraham Lincoln's who has left him. So they're both kind of going through this together. They're both lawyers, young, aspirational men, and they've really, faced this challenge. And so they have, this correspondence. It would be like being able to read our text today, but he says it's certainly more lofty than I think what we text back and forth now. But he says, it is the peculiar misfortune of both you and I to dream dreams of Elysium which no earthly thing can realize. And that's just gripping, to feel all at once like his incredible sadness and his aspiration and I think it's easy to think of that as a negative statement, but it's something that I really relate to on a really personal level. And I think, like we were talking about before, that there's only so much that we get to experience and how precious that little bit is. But that's like that sentence alone. I want to sit and have a drink with him. But
boundless.
I'd like to explore, especially if it was an Abraham Lincoln who his ghost or somebody, he's come back from the dead or something, whatever. To ask how did that work out? Did you realize those dreams? I mean, you did these amazing things, and you see it all throughout his life, that no matter how much he accomplishes, he's not satisfied. It's not enough. It's not he didn't. It wasn't perfect. It could have been better. And he holds himself to that standard. I think that's why he was so successful.
Ironically enough, the only thing, and this is not a joke, the only thing that can stop a man so ambitious is the bullet of an assassin. Seriously, he'll never move. It's the only thing that can take him out of that perpetual movement forward. Well, all right, amazing thing. But I do want to talk about this last piece. Which I wish I
only got to do one.
That's a great part. You're like, well, when it comes to, I want to do another one.
I want to do the next one. I want to do Ibn al-Sina next time.
Right? Like, I try to think about who the hell I want to talk to. It's hard to say. But I wish you could have pulled up the mini cocktail vehicle. Is that a good word for it? Vive is Vive in the spirit of this incredible experience. It's cocktails in a moving vehicle, but it's not moving at the time, right? Kind of
so what you're asking about is the camionette.
The camionette.
And la camionnette. It sounds so sexy, and it's just French for van. It's
good, right?
It's much better. It's much better in the French, and that's why it's difficult for a lot of Americans to say. We keep it that way because it's a lot sexier that way. It is a repurposed. Is it a Peugeot or Citroën? Or I'm not sure.
Whatever it is,
I'm not sure exactly. Yeah. But it's a French vehicle that's been kind of completely overhauled and redone. And designed to look like a boulangerie. There's some wonderful baguettes in the window, and all designed to evoke like the soft French winter wheat that produce Grey Goose with, and kind of begin that story before you even get inside. But it is we kind of bill it as the world's most intimate martini bar. And I definitely experienced, that intimacy in the process. Because there was a time or two that there was just one person that was just like, I gotta get in, I gotta do it. And, so they just crammed, there's 2 seats, and a bartender. Oh man. And they just cram in behind them. So we got real close,
That's amazing.
But it's really a fun experience. It's like 15-minute experience. And, you basically you come with a friend or a guest, and you have a seat, and an ambassador for Grey Goose will prepare 3 cocktails, 2 classic martinis, vodka martinis, for each guest, and then 1 each of a Gypsy Queen and a Flame of Love.
Wow.
And they are there's a real range, I guess.
Yeah.
You get an incredible spectrum too, as far as flavor profiles and so forth. And I think that it's always surprising just on that basic visceral physical level, surprising to people that martinis can be so much.
Yeah.
And that's part of why we do it. Because martinis are a very nebulous concept, and they're meant to be personalized and so forth.
Seems like a very transportative.
No, it is. I see what you did there.
Yeah, because again, tying it back, lingerie. Lingerie. It's the beautiful part.
Of
France.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
The smells and just the lines. And
it's and and that was I think two questions that were kind of rolled into one, because of course what is the camionnette, and then what is Vive, and Vive. While the camionnette is an expression of Vive, Vive is our focus for this year. It's like distilling the entire focus of the year down into one word, and it's Vive. It's it's ambitious and vivacious and lively and fun-loving, but at the same time, it's something that is cultured, and it's something that is what's the right word?
Feels nuanced.
Yeah.
Convivial, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. Vive is we use The Great Gatsby as an example. Nick Gatsby as an example of what viving is. Obviously, it didn't work out as well as you might wish for him in the end. He had, of course, his fatal flaw, and it's a tragic comedy, and that's we all know this wonderful book, but in his moment, like that's what it looks like. Here's a man who, with a single purpose, has not just changed himself, but has changed the world around him, which I think is the most human thing. I think that we become human when we stop trying to just survive and begin to reach out. We don't just change ourselves now. We start to change the world around us, and affect the world. And I think that of course he became a man of influence and culture and taste, and a man who knew what he wanted, and at least for a while got it. I think another kind of significant example, of course, being your classic James Bond, and kind of tied into the story of the Martini, right? I mean, everybody's like shocked by this guy, and back in the 60s, like, you knew it was stirred, and here's this guy who's walking, and he's like, I know how it's supposed to be, I know how it's prepared. I want it shaken, and he has the confidence to say, everybody else is going that way, but I'm going this way, and people were captivated by that, right?
Tell me these aren't the quintessential metaphors for Grey Goose.
Yeah, exactly.
Counter culture.
Yes.
Revolutionary.
Yes.
Subversive.
Right.
All these things. And so the fact that we actually get to sit here and talk about this in this way, this perhaps is one of the most literary conversations we've had, which that's great.
Yeah, we can pound shots next time and just talk.
Yeah, talk about Metallica, man. But I love Metallica. Don't get me wrong. But
yeah. It
was really just a brilliant pleasure, man, to chat with you. And we're sipping. In this case, the accoutrement is the Criterion rum. This is the second time I've had it during a conversation.
Yeah, no, please.
And it's just fucking insane. And it kind of doesn't need the press. You know what I mean? It's an amazing, self-evident. Its beauty is self-evident.
Yeah, absolutely.
And most of that stuff coming out of Foursquare and Richard Seal is just insane, right?
Incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. But thank you so much for stopping by. We made this happen in short notice. It was just great. And I can't see a better fit for this team. I can't
Thank you so much.
See a better opportunity for you, and it is really exciting for me to see how this transpires for you as a man, as a soon-to-be husband, as someone finally reaching their 30s.
Right, yeah, for better or for worse.
True, you'll transcend, right?
Right. Yeah, of course. After this is all uphill, right? It's all easy.
Yeah, no, right, uphill. Yeah, that's right. No,
wait, which one are we saying? Those never did make sense.
Never did.
Yeah,
but
it's more Sisyphean, really.
It's going to be a brilliant run.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean to make it so.
Yeah.
And there's you can only, of course, control yourself and what you do, but I think that I have a lot of resources, I have a lot of support, and a lot of people that can guide me, on that path, and I'm just really, really excited to be here and take it minute by minute.
Best way to do so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ian, for chatting with me.
Thank you
really
so much.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
So there we have it, Mr. Ian Reilly of Grey Goose Vodka, the new Texas ambassador, has had a great experience so far since starting in July. Get to talk about the most intimate, sexy cocktail experience, the Camionnette, brought to you by Grey Goose Vodka, and so much more. A guy who is wise beyond his years. He's not even 30 yet, and I'm very excited to see what kinds of things Ian does next. So Ian, thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me. So insightful and so helpful for me. Sometimes when you talk to these guests, you're in a particular place yourself, and this really helps you get some clarity. So thanks everybody for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter how much you're enjoying season 2 of Judd Apatow's Love on Netflix, or if you're thinking, I'm pretty sure it's going to be scary as shit. So I'm going to go see it this weekend. Please keep dancing.